Okay. Let's see if all this is working. Sorry, I'm setting up on a different computer, different setup, different everything, different headset. I don't know how this is all going to sound. Hopefully it'll be okay.
Chapter 5.
Yeah.
Chapter 5. The Burglary.
A little tick there, so I'm going to have to silence that.
Chapter 5. The Burglary at the Vicarage.
Oh, incredibly exciting. Let's mute all the stuff in between. I do have software that should be able to do this automatically, but I don't trust it. Much like when people ask for subtitles on the audiobooks and stuff, and they're like, it's really easy, just turn on the automatic thing. I don't trust it. You've seen how often it's wrong. You've seen, you know, it continually putting up text on the screen that's not what's being spoken. It's just what it thinks is being said. Yeah, I don't trust it, so I don't use it.
Chapter 5. The Burglary at the Vicarage. The facts of the burglary at the vicarage came to us chiefly through the medium of the vicar and his wife. It occurred in the vicar and his wife. It occurred in the small hours of Whit Monday, the day devoted in Epping to the club festivities. Mrs. Club festivities. Mrs. Bunting, it seems, was Epping to the club festivities. Mrs. Bunting, it seems, woke up suddenly in the stillness that comes before the dawn. With the strong impression that the door before the dawn, with the strong impression that the door of their bedroom had opened and closed. She did not arouse and closed. She did not arouse her husband at first, but sat up in bed, listening. She then distinctly heard the pad, pad, pad of bare feet coming out of the adjoining dressing room and walking along the passage, coming out of the adjoining dressing room and walking along the passage towards the staircase. Towards the staircase.
I'll tell you, I've got a new headset on, got the Logitech Pro X, and it all sounds very different. Yeah, it's taking a while to get used to the different sound of this thing.
Towards the staircase. As soon as she felt assured of this, she aroused the Reverend Mr. Bunting as quickly towards the staircase. Towards the staircase. As soon as she felt assured of this, she aroused the Reverend Mr. Bunting as quickly as possible. He did not strike a light. As possible. He did not strike a light, but put it possible. As possible.
What's that click? I have to try and get rid of that.
Quickly as possible. He did not strike a light as possible. As possible.
They're not going to be able to get rid of all of it.
Quickly as possible. He did not strike a light, but
flawless.
As possible. He did not strike a light, but
I do like that. Anytime you hear an error and you're able to get rid of it completely, fantastic. Because you don't notice all of them when you're recording. It has to be said.
As possible. He did not strike a light, but putting on his spectacles, her dressing gown, and his bath slippers, he went out on the land and his bath slippers.
Excuse me 1 second. My little robot vacuum has gotten stuck on a thing. Did that not work? Yes, it did. Oh, great. Okay. Oops. All right, there we go. I tell you, they're great little devices. There's, I think the originals were called Roombas, right? We use a Eufy, which does the job well, and they are very good, but not very smart.
And his bath slippers, he went out. Bath slippers, he went out on the landing. Gown and his bath slippers, he went out on the landing. He went. His bath slippers, he went out on the landing to listen. He heard quite distinctly to listen. He heard quite distinctly a fumbling going on at his study desk downstairs, and then downstairs, and then stairs, and then a violent sneeze.
It's a very odd thing that the human brain does, or at least mine does, and I assume everyone else does as well, is when there's a breath, you sort of delete that time from your mind. But if you mute that breath and it just becomes empty space, then you're suddenly thinking, oh, that gap's a bit long. That sounds weird. So you have to delete the space where the breath was before it will sound authentic again. Amazing, right?
A violent sneeze. At that, he returned to his bedroom, armed himself with the most obvious weapon, the poker, and descended the poker, and most obvious weapon, the poker, and descended the staircase as and descended the staircase as noiselessly obvious weapon, the poker, and descended the staircase as noiselessly as possible. Mrs. Bunting as possible. Mrs. Bunting came out on the landing. The hour was about on the landing. Out on the landing. The hour was about 4, and the ultimate darkness about 4, and the ultimate darkness of the night was past. There was a faint shimmer. It was past. Night was past. There was a faint shimmer of light in the hall, but the study doorway yawned impenetrably black. Impenetrably. But the study of light in the hall, but the study doorway yawned impenetrably black. Everything was still, impenetrably black. Everything was still, except the faint creaking of the stairs under Mr. Bunting's tread, and the slight movement Mr. Bunting's tread and the slight movements in the study. Movements in the study. Then something snapped in the study. Then something snapped. The drawer was opened and there was a rustle of papers. Then came an rustle of papers. Then came an imprecaution, and a match was struck, and the study was flooded with yellow light. Mr. Bunting was now
Wrong keyboard shortcut there.
with yellow light. Mr. Bunting was now in the hall, and through the crack of the door he could see the desk and the open drawer and a can and open drawer and a candle burning on the desk. But the robber he could not see. But the robber he could not see. But the robber he could not see. Not see. He stood there in the hall, undecided what to do, and Mrs. Bunting, her face white and intent, crept slowly downstairs. Crept slowly downstairs after him. One thing kept after him. One thing after him. One thing kept Mr. Bunting's courage, the persuasion that the persuasion that this burglar was a resident in the village.
A local.
Village. They heard the chink of money and realized that the robber had found the housekeeping reserve of gold, £2.10 in half sovereigns altogether. At that sound, Mr. Bunting was altogether. At that sound, Mr. Bunting was nerved to abrupt action. Gripping the poker firmly, he rushed into the room, closely followed by Mrs. Bunting. "Surrender!" by Mrs. Bunting. Messed that voice up. "So we've only done him very gently so far, and this is sort of how he speaks. Hello, I'm the Reverend Bunting. So if he cries fiercely in that voice, it would sound like, 'Surrender!' cried Mr. Bunting fiercely in that voice. Messed that voice. 'Surrender! Surrender!'
Much the same. Went through all that, and it sounded exactly the same. Oh, well, there you go.
Mrs. Bunting.
And clipped it horrendously. I might have to re-record that. Let's see, where was it?
So if he cries fiercely, 'Surrender!'
I have to see that how that comes off after the next part of the edit, when we do the actual mastering of volume and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes, actually quite often, it fixes that, but sometimes it does not, and I'll have to re-record it.
Closely followed by Mrs. Bunting. 'Surrender!' cried Mr. Bunting. "Surrender!" cried Mr. Bunting. "Surrender!" cried Mr. Bunting fiercely, and then stooped. Fiercely, and then stooped, amazed. Apparently amazed. Stooped, amazed. Apparently The room was perfectly empty. Empty. Perfectly empty. Yet their empty. Empty. Yet their conviction that they had perfectly empty. Yet their conviction that they had at that perfectly empty. Yet their conviction that they had at that very moment. Yet their conviction that they had that very moment heard somebody moving in the room had amounted to a certainty. For half a minute, perhaps, For half a minute, perhaps. Certainty. For half a minute, perhaps, they stood gaping. Then Mrs. Bunting went across the room and looked behind the screen, while Mr. Bunting, by a kindred impulse, peered under the desk. Then Mr. the desk. Then under the desk. Then Mrs. Bunting turned back the window curtains, and Mr. Bunting looked up the chimney and probed it with a poker. Then Mrs. Bunting scrutinized the waste paper basket, and Mr. Bunting opened the lid of the coal scuttle. Then they came to a stop. Then they came to a stop and stood with eyes interrogating each other. I could have sworn, said Mr. Bunting. The candle, said Mrs. Oh, wait. Oh, that's very odd. Okay, hold on. He has two lines, one after the other. You just wouldn't see that in a modern script at all. Okay. The candle, said Mr. Bunting. I could have sworn, said Mr. Bunting. The candle. I could have sworn, said Mr. Bunting. I could have sworn, said Mr. Bunting. The candle, said the candle.
That is weird, isn't it? It's not that he has two lines in a row. That's absolutely fine. But that on both occasions, it would have the said Mr. Bunting. You know, that's weird.
I could have sworn, said Mr. Bunting. The candle, said Mr. Bunting. Who lit the candle? Said Mr. Bunting. The candle, said Mr. Bunting. Who lit the candle? The drawer, said Mr. Bunting.
I'm so tempted to delete that. I can't do it. Because it's not that it's like really offensive to modern sensibilities, except to me and anyone else that is a fan of the conventions of the English language, but
the candle, said Mr. Bunting. Who lit the...
It's so unnecessary and strange.
Bunting. Who lit the candle? The drawer, said the candle.
See,
said Mr. Bunting.
Where does it start?
I could have sworn, said Mr. Bunting. The candle, said Mr. Bunting.
If we just delete that, right? I'll put it back, don't worry, but we'll hear it without it.
I could have sworn, said Mr. Bunting. The candle. Who lit the candle? The drawer.
It's absolutely fine. It doesn't need that second said Mr. Bunting. It shouldn't be there. In modern writing, it wouldn't be there. It's just so weird.
Who lit the candle? The drawer. Who lit the candle? The drawer, said Miss. The drawer, said Mrs. Bunting. And the money's gone. Mrs. Bunting. And the money's gone. She went hastily to the doorway. He's gone. She went hastily to the doorway. Of all the strange occurrences. And the money's gone. She went. And the money's gone. She went hastily to the doorway. And the money's gone. She went hastily to the doorway. Of all the strange occurrences. There was a violent. Strange occurrences. There was a. Occurrences. There was a the strange occurrences. There was a violent sneeze in the passage. They rushed out, and as they
Gonna have to find a bunch of sneezes for the sound effects in this one. I don't think I have any. I don't have them on this computer anyway.
In the passage. They rushed out, and as they did so, the kitchen door slammed. Bring the candle. In the passage. Slammed. Bring the candle. Door slammed. Bring the candle, said Mr. Bunting, and led the way. They both heard a say. Led the way. They both heard a sound of bolts being hastily shot back. As he opened the kitchen, shot back. As he shot back. As he opened the kitchen door, he saw through the scullery that the back door was just opening, and the faint opening and the faint light of just opening, and the faint light of early dawn displayed the dark masses of the garden beyond. He is masses of the garden beyond. He is certain that nothing went out of the door. It opened. Door.
Another weird one there. Everything's been written in past tense, as is normal in stories like this, except for
He is certain that nothing went out of the door.
that sentence. That's the only time in the whole chapter, in most of the books so far, where it suddenly, for no reason, switches from past tense to present tense. Why? Why? And this guy's supposed to be one of the greatest writers, you know, certainly of science fiction in the 20th century. But there you go.
The garden beyond.
19th century? Can't remember when this one was written. Was it 19th or 20th? Let's have a look here. No. Google, thank you. The Invisible Man. The book, please. Not the shitty movie. 1897. There you go, 19th century. Yeah. Odd, right? Oh well. Oh well, there you go.
Of the garden beyond. He is certain that nothing went out of the door. It opened, stood open for a moment, and then closed with a slam. See that? It switched.
I think I complained about it at the time too. Nice. That's good. That's not, I'm so predictable.
As it did so, and closed with a slam. With a slam. As it did so, the candle Mrs. Bunting was carrying from the study flickered and flared. It was a minute or more before they entered the kitchen. The place. Entered the kitchen. The place was empty. Entered the kitchen. The place was empty. They The place was empty.
Got a little bit of dry mouth going on there.
Was empty. They refastened the back door, examined the kitchen, pantry, and scullery thoroughly, and at last went down into thoroughly.
There's a tick in the middle there I can't get rid of. If it's right in the middle of the word, I used to spend literally hours.
Thoroughly.
You hear that little tick?
Thoroughly.
In the middle of thoroughly?
Thoroughly.
Right? I used to spend literally hours trying to find it.
Thoroughly.
Right? It's in there somewhere. I used to spend hours trying to find it and delete it. But, I mean, first, no one really notices those things other than me. And second, it takes so long to clean it up, it's just absolutely not worth the effort.
Thoroughly. And at last went down into the cellar. There was not a soul.
And it tends to mess with the word. You know, you can probably hear the repair far better than you can hear the click.
And at last went down into the cellar. There was not a soul to be found in the house, search as they would. Daylight found pantry and scullery thoroughly, and at last went down into the cellar. There was not a soul to be found in the house, scullery thoroughly, pantry and scullery thoroughly, and at last went down into the cellar. There was not a soul to be found in the house, search as they would. Daylight found the vicar and his wife, a quaintly costumed little couple, still marvelling about on their own ground floor by the unnecessary light of a guttering candle. Candle. That's it. Chapter 5's very short.
Yeah, look at that. 4.5 minutes. Gosh. That's super short. I'm not sure I can release that as a chapter by itself. I might have to combine it with chapter 6. We'll have a look. Because chapter... let's see. Where are we? Is it in there? I think it is. No, it's not. I don't know where I put it. But the actual... Oh, actually, I can check it on my phone. One moment. The actual files are... let's see. Chapter 1 is 12 minutes. Chapter 2 is 10. So yeah, they're not long. Chapter 3 is 10. Chapter 4 is 14. Yeah, so a little bit wobbly. He does not mind at all having different length chapters all over the place, you know. Nor does he mind switching between past and present tense or doing weird little writing things, having one person said twice in a sentence. You know, it's just weird. He's a bit of a weird writer. He is. I'm sorry. He just is. Okay, let's... I was planning to do the sound effects edit of Chapter 5 as well today, but I don't think I have the sound effects on this computer. I'd have to go over to the desktop to do that. Right, so maybe... Yeah, let's just kick straight into work on Chapter 6.
Chapter 6.
Yes, that's what I said, Steve.
Chapter 6. The furniture that went mad. That went mad. Now, it happened that in the early hours of Whit Monday, before Milly was hunted out for the day, Mr. Hall and Mrs. Hall both Mr. Hall and Mrs. Hall both rose and went noiselessly down into the cellar. Their business down into the cellar. Noiselessly down into the cellar. Their business there was of a private nature.
Hey, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, but no, it's not that.
And had something to do with the specific gravity of their beer. They had hardly entered.
It's a still of some sort.
Gravity of their beer. They had hardly entered. They had hardly entered the cellar when Mrs. Hall found she had forgotten to bring down a bottle of sarsaparilla from their joint room. As she was the expert and principal operator in this affair, Hall very properly went from their joint room. As she was the from their joint room. As she was the expert and principal operator in this affair, Hall for it. In this affair, Hall very properly went upstairs for it.
This is all quite clipped. I record both these on one day. I can't help but thinking maybe I left the gain a bit high on that microphone. Because
Properly went upstairs for it.
there's a lot more clipping going on than is usual. I'm sort of tempted to, in fact, I am going to do it. I'm not just tempted. I'm going to check this other program and see if it's going to fix a lot of that clipping in the remastering. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go and re-record both chapters. And yeah, no, we'll just do that for the moment. That's fine. Come on, Slowpoke. Adobe. It's so expensive and it's not great, but it is. I mean, it does do all the things that I need it to do, so there we go. Okay.
Chapter 5. The Burglary at the Vicarage. The facts of the burglary at the vicarage.
You can see it's clipping the top up there now, as is. So what we'll do loudness, auto match, no, repair, reduce noise, oops, dehum, reduce reverb, dynamics, EQ will leave, vocal enhancer we will leave. I don't tend to mess with that too much. It's fine, auto match that. Reanalyze the dynamics. We don't need that. Alright. And then we will normalize all peaks to -1 decibel. There we go. And let's see how it sounds.
Chapter 5.
No, that's horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible.
The burglary at the... Chapter 5.
Awful, 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 awful. Delete. Do that again. Thank you. Okay. You don't want to mess with it too much, man. Don't want to mess with it too much. So G, let's just normalize all peaks for the moment. and then we'll minimize the rest of the work we're going to do to it.
Chapter 5. The Burglary at the Vicarage. The facts of the burglary at the vicarage came to us chiefly through the medium of the vicar and his wife. It occurred in the small hours of Whit Monday, the day devoted in Epping to the club festivities. Mrs. Bunting, it seems, woke up suddenly in the stillness that comes before the dawn, with the strong impression that the door of their bedroom had opened and closed. She did not arouse her husband at first, but sat up in bed, listening. She then distinctly heard the pad, pad, pad of bare feet coming out of the adjoining dressing room and walking along the passage towards the staircase.
Is it just me, or was my voice sounding a little husky that day too?
As soon as she felt assured of this, she aroused the Reverend Mr. Bunting as quickly as possible. He did not strike a light, but putting on his spectacles, her dressing gown, and his bath slippers, he went out on the landing to listen. He heard quite distinctly a fumbling going on at his
Get to where I know there was some distortion.
Yet their conviction that they had that very moment heard somebody moving in the room had amounted to a certainty. For half a minute, perhaps, they stood gaping. Then Mrs. Bunting went across the room and looked behind the screen, while Mr. Bunting, by a kindred impulse, peered under the desk. At that, he returned to his bedroom, armed himself with the most obvious weapon.
Yeah, no, that's not too bad. That's all right. Okay. So after it's been cleaned up a bit in the second piece of software, it will be okay. So for the moment, we're going to have to try and ignore a lot of that. I mean, honestly, part of the reason that I started doing lots of background music initially for podcasts that I was recording back in the day was that it covers a lot of those evils, you know, background noise, distortion, these sorts of things. When the recording quality of what I was doing was not great, it could fix a lot of that. Now I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on technology to try and deal with that sort of thing, and I hope it sounds better.
I don't know why Mrs. Hall is Mrs. Hall, as she was the expert and principal operator in this affair. Hall very properly went upstairs for it. On the landing, he was surprised to see that the stranger's door was ajar.
Yeah, there was a little note I threw in there during recording. It's a bit weird that Mrs. Hall is known as Mrs. Hall, but Mr. Hall is just known as Hall. It's, I don't know, odd. I don't know if it's a convention of the time or if it's another weird Wellsism.
His door was ajar. He went on into his own room and found the bottle as he had been directed, but returning with But returning with the bottle, he noticed that the bolts of the front door had been shot back, that the door was in fact simply on the latch. And with a flash of inspiration, he connected this with the stranger's room upstairs and the suggestions of Mr. Teddy Henfrey. He distinctly remembered Teddy Henfrey. Mr. Teddy Henfrey. He distinctly remembered holding the candle while Mrs. Hall shot these bolts overnight. At the sight, he stopped, gaping, then, with the bottle still in hand, went upstairs again. He rapped He rapped, went upstairs again. He rapped at the stranger's door. There was no answer. He rapped at the stranger's door. There was no answer. He rapped again at the stranger's door. There was no answer. There was no answer. He rapped again, then pushed the door wide again. He rapped again, then pushed the door. He rapped again, then pushed the door wide open and entered. It was as he expected. The bed, the room also, was empty. And what was strange was empty. And what was empty. And what was stranger, even to his heavy intelligence, on the bedroom chair and along on the bedroom chair and along the rail of the bed were scattered the garments, the only garments, so far as he knew, and the bandages, as he knew, and the bandages of their guest. His big slouch hat, even, was cocked jauntily over the bedpost. Bandages of their guest. His big slouch hat, even, was cocked jauntily over the bedpost. As Hall stood there, he heard his wife's voice coming out of the depths of the cellar with that rapid telescoping of the syllables and interrogative cocking up. And interrogative cocking up. Yeah. And interrogative cocking up of the cocking up syllables and telescoping of the syllables and interrogative and interrogative of the syllables and interrogative syllables and interrogative cocking up of the final words to a high note, by which the West Sussex words to a high note, by which the West Sussex villager is wont to indicate a brisk impatience. George! Brisk impatience. Impatience. George, you got what I want? At that, he turned. George, you got what I want? At that, he turned and hurried down to her. I didn't download the voices.
A little bit of a break here while my actor goes and finds the things he needs.
At that, he turned and hurried down.
I just had to go into my little online folder where I store... Oh, excuse me. Oh dear, it's still very early in the morning over here. Had to go over to my folder where I store samples of all the characters to remind myself of everybody's voice, what they sound like.
At that, he turned and hurried down to her. George, you got what I want? At that, he turned and hurried down to her. Johnny, he said over the rail of the cellar. He said over the... down to her. "Johnny," he said over the rail of the cellar steps. "'Twas rail of the cellar steps. Cellar steps. "'Twas the truth what Enfrey says. He's not in his room, he ain't. And the front door's unbolted. He ain't. And the front door's... and... he ain't. And the front door's unbolted."
Oh gosh, I hope the resampling can deal with that much distortion. I'm really going to have to check the gain switch on the microphone that I use for recording, because there is a lot of clipping going on here.
"And the front door's unbolted." At first, Mrs. Hall did not understand, and as soon as she did, she resolved to see the empty room for herself. Hall Hall, still holding the bottle, went first. First. "If he ain't there." Went first. "If he ain't there," he said. "If he ain't there," he said, "his clothes are." "If he ain't there," he said, "his clothes are. And what he doing without his clothes then? 'Tis a most curious business." Curious business. As they came up the cellar steps, they both, it was afterwards ascertained, fancied they heard the front door open and shut, but seeing it closed, shut. But seeing the door open and shut, but seeing it closed and nothing there, neither said a word to the other about it at the time. Mrs. Hall, Mrs. Hall passed her husband in the passage and ran on first upstairs. Someone sneezed at the time. About it at the time. Mrs. Hall passed her husband in the passage and ran on first upstairs. Someone sneezed first upstairs. Someone sneezed on the staircase. Hall, following Sips.
Now this is a great piece of psychology here of humanity and how their brains will do backflips to try and make the unusual seem ordinary. If there was an invisible person walking around, even if they were making noise, your brain would probably just fill the gaps and go, "Oh, it's probably just this, it's probably just that, blah, 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 blah." You know? Anything rather than think, "Oh my, is there an invisible person walking around here?" You know? You wouldn't think that.
On the staircase. Hall, following on the staircase. Hall, following 6 steps behind, thought that he heard her sneeze. She, going on... heard her sneeze. She, going on first, was under the impression that Hall was sneezing. She flung open the door and... was sneezing.
So they're going up the stairs. The invisible man is between them. And he sneezes loudly, and they're both just like, "Oh, it was probably the other one." You know? It's wild. It's wild.
Hall was sneezing. She flung open the door and stood regarding the room. The room. "Of all the curious," she said. "Curious," she said.
I don't know, man. This is all sounding really, really distorted.
She heard, "All the curious," she said.
Right? Particularly their voices.
She heard, she said. She heard, curious, she said. She heard a sniff close behind her head, as it seemed, and, turning, was surprised to see Hall a dozen feet off on the topmost stair. But in another moment he off on the topmost stair. But in another moment he topmost stair. But in another moment he was beside her. She bent forward and put her hand on... was beside her. She bent forward and put her hand on the pillow and then under the clothes. "Cold," she said. The clothes. "Cold."
Right? She heard a noise right behind her head, looked back and saw her husband several steps away, and just went, oh well.
The clothes. "Cold."
But I mean, what are you supposed to think? Oh, there's an invisible person right behind me. Of course you're not. Of course you're not.
The clothes. "Cold," she said. "He's been up." "Cold," she said. "He's been up." "Cold," she said. "He's been up." "Cold," she said. "He's been up this hour or more." As she did so, a most extraordinary thing happened. The bedclothes
I'm clipping everything here.
happened. The bedclothes gathered themselves together, leapt up suddenly into a sort of peak, and then jumped.
Tell you, there's this new kind of microphone that's come out. Well, I won't bother going too much into details for you, but basically it means that even if you record wild clipping, okay, screaming at the top of your lungs right into the microphone, later on in edit, you'll still be able to adjust it down and get rid of distortion. It's, yeah, fantastic. Also fantastically expensive, which is why I don't have one already, but, I'll tell you, editing these 2 chapters is making me rethink that.
Into a sort of peak, and then jumped headlong over.
If it wasn't for AI coming to crush my channel and my business, I would probably fork out for that microphone right now. If we were still growing rather than shrinking, I would spend that money.
Into a sort of peak, and then jumped headlong over the bottom rail. It was exactly as if a hand... bottom rail. It was over the bottom rail. It was exactly as if a hand had clutched them in the center and flung them aside. Immediately flung them aside. Immediately after, the stranger's hat hopped off the bedpost, described a whirling flight in the air through the better part of a circle, and then dashed straight at Mrs. Hall's face. Then as Hall's face. Then as Hall's face. Then, as swiftly, came the sponge from the washstand, and then the chair, flinging the stranger's coat and trousers carelessly aside. Flinging the coat and trousers careless chair, stand, and then the chair, flinging the flinging the stranger's coat, and then the chair, flinging the stranger's coat and trousers carelessly aside, and laughing dryly in a voice singularly like the stranger's. Strangers. It's for editing later. Turned itself up with its 4 legs at Mrs. Hall, seemed to take aim at her for a moment, and charged at her for a moment, and charged at her. Charged at her. She screamed and turned, and then the chair legs came gently but firmly against her back and impelled her and Hall out of the room. The door slammed of the room.
Very fun doing sound effects for this.
Out of the room. The door of the room. The door slammed violently and was locked. The chair and bed was locked. The chair and bed seemed to be executing a dance of triumph for a moment, and then abruptly, everything. And then abruptly, everything was still. Everything was still. Mrs. Hall was left almost in a fainting condition in Mr. Hall's arms on the landing. It was Hall's arms on the landing. It was with the great...
Judah, ever thought of using AI to clone your actors' voices? No. Never. Ever. Not even once. I was offered quite a lot of money to do that, and, no. Absolutely fucking not. I would rather die. I would rather scoop out my eyes, cut out my tongue. Fuck AI. Fuck that tech. I will never embrace that shit as long as I live. No. Thanks for the suggestion, though. No.
Hall's arms on the landing. It was with the greatest difficulty that Mr. Hall and Millie, who had been roused by...
Do you think I'm a little fanatical about it? Am I? Do I go too far? Maybe. I don't know.
Hall's arms on the landing. It was with the greatest difficulty that Mr. Hall and Millie, who had been roused by her scream of alarm, succeeded in getting her downstairs and applying the restoratives customary in such cases.
Booze was the restoratives customary in such cases back at the time. Oh, you've had a bit of a shock. Here, get slightly drunk. Have some brandy.
In such cases. "'Tis spirits," said Mrs. Hall. "Spirits," said Mrs. Hall. "'Tis spirits," said Mrs. Hall. "I know 'tis spirits. I read in papers of 'em, tables and chairs leaping and dancing. I take a drop."
Mache, the former editor for SPA, used to use a lot of AI tools for editing. Hey, Tupac been rapping for years since his death. Yeah, quite right. Sorry, let's pop your chat up on screen there. Hopefully that worked. Yeah, I don't like that either. The idea of dead performers continuing to perform, awful. Is that not working? No, it's not. I don't know what I did there. Oh, where am I? Here we are. There we are. Oh, I probably just didn't do the keyboard shortcuts properly.
Sleeping and dancing. Right. "I take a drop more, Johnny," said Hall. "More, Johnny," said Hall. "'Twill steady."
I really don't like. It's not the AI in itself. It's what the corporations are going to do with it. Okay, the artists are, as far as the corporations are concerned, they're just an impediment to them making more fucking money. If they could have the talent without having to deal with the artists, great. You know, if they don't have to pay the artists and they can have all the money themselves, oh, so good. They'd be creaming themselves in their Lamborghinis just thinking about the possibility. And I fucking hate that. I really, really do. They don't want us. They don't like us. They don't appreciate or respect us. They don't like what we do. They wish we weren't necessary. And AI is well on the fucking way to making sure that we are not necessary anymore. And it infuriates me. Art is not meant to be this fucking bullshit corporate crap, but it will be very soon. Very soon, you won't have human artists. They will all be deleted. And it drives me nuts. But there you go. That's the way of the world, eh?
More, Johnny, said Hall.
More money, less art. Who gives a fuck?
'Twill steady you. Lock him out!
We're not important, are we? You know? That's why my channel's being destroyed by a fucking AI channel right now, because no one gives a shit.
'Twill steady you.
And it's bothering me slightly. I don't know if I've made that clear, but it is it is disturbing me. Yeah. If I could find the owners of that channel and physically go and wring their necks, I 100% would do that.
'Twill steady you. Lock him out, said Mrs. Hall. Lock him out, said Mrs. Hall. Mrs. Hall. Don't let him come in again. I half guessed. I might have known. With them goggling eyes and bandaged head and never going to church of a Sunday and all they bottles, more'n it's right for anyone to have.
So much distortion going on there.
He put the spirits into the furniture. My good no.
I might have to, at the very least, re-record the lines of the characters.
Oh. Just a drop more, Johnny.
You get more drunk. You're still upset. Here, have some more brandy. Medicinal drunkenness. Awesome.
No! Just a drop more, Johnny, said Hall. Drop more, Johnny, said Hall. Your nerves is all upset.
I mean, it was not unusual until fairly recently for like people to dip a noisy baby's dummy in brandy to shut them up. Get the baby drunk. It's good. That's fine. It's fine. It'll do the trick.
Your nerves is all upset. They sent Millie across the street through the golden 5 o'clock sunshine to They said,
right. I cut out a bit too much silence there.
All upset. They sent Millie across the street through the golden 5 o'clock sunshine to rouse up Mr. Sandy Wedges, the blacksmith.
A very unfortunate name.
Mr. Sandy Wedges.
What was that?
Sandy Wedges.
Once more?
Sandy Wedges.
Right. That's a great name.
Sandy Wedges, the blacksmith. Wedges, the blacksmith. Mr. Hall's
Sandy Wedges.
The blacksmith.
I would change my name if that was my name, but there you go.
The blacksmith. Mr. Hall's compliments, and the furniture upstairs was behaving most extraordinary. Would Mr. Wedges come round? He was a knowing man. Come round. He was a knowing.
Remember back in 2010, there was an uproar when the Johnny Walker ad with Bruce Lee, and they said no one would ever use AI voices or remake Dead Celebs. Then 10 years after, yeah, that's right. No, they will do. I mean, we see it all over the place, right? Where companies will try something, and then if there's a huge uproar, they'll go, "Oh, sorry, that was an accident. We didn't mean to do that," or something. Don't worry, we would never do that. But they bloody will. They'll just try again later. You know, we'll see it. We'll see it. You know. Yeah, everything. Artists will be replaced. I'm telling you, there will be no human artists in 20 years. They just won't exist. Or there'll be a little like 0.01% of the audience is like, oh, I listen to real human music, and people will laugh at them for being wankers. Humans? Why would you listen to humans? You know, that's what it'll be like. Yay! Yahoo! What a time to be an artist. Oh well. I tell you, whenever people ask me, "Hey, I want to become an artist in whatever field, music or acting or voice artistry or whatever," and they say, "Oh, I really want to do that. How should I get started?" My advice nowadays is don't. This career won't exist in a few years. You know, go and become a fucking AI programmer or a scumbag lawyer or something. Actually make money, give yourself a career. If you're going to do art in the future, it's not going to be a career. You'll do it just because you want to do it, which is great, but it means it will only ever be a hobby and you won't have experts anymore. No one will master an art. It'll just be something they do in their back room for fun on the weekend.
Come round. He was a knowing man, was Mr. Wadgers, and very resourceful. He took quite a grave view of the case. New voice. What shall Mr. I'm darned if that...
Had to come up with a new voice on the fly, and this is the voice that I came up with for the blacksmith who was knowing of all the things. He had the knowing of the things, did Mr. Wadgers.
I'm darned if there aren't witchcraft.
That was his voice. Darned if there aren't witchcraft. Oh my God.
And very resourceful. He took quite a grave view of the case. I'm darned if there aren't witchcraft, was the view of Mr. Sandy Wadgers. Sandy Wadgers. You weren't horseshoes for such gentry as he. He came round greatly. He came round greatly concerned. They wanted him to lead the way upstairs to the room, but he didn't seem to be in any hurry. He preferred He preferred to talk in the passage. Over the way, Huxter's passage. He preferred to talk in the passage. Over the way, Huxter's apprentice came out and began... Huxter's apprentice came out and began taking down the shutters of the tobacco window. He was called over to join the discussion.
Taking down the shutters of the tobacco window. I have no idea what that means. I presume it's some sort of like hole-in-the-wall merchant thing, and maybe the shutters close it or something. They hang on the outside. I know in oh, you know what it might be. I noticed in Japan, where I come from, the weather's very mild, right? But in Japan, it got really extreme sometimes, like big tsunamis and snowstorms and windstorms and all stuff like that. And they would have really serious, solid wooden shutters that they would like basically bolt onto the outside of their houses to protect windows. Maybe it's something like that, because this has been set just at the end of winter, right? They were just having their last snowstorm at the start of the book, and now it's coming on a bit. So maybe it's something like that. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Tobacco window. He was called over to join the discussion. Oh, hiccups. He was called over to join the discussion. Mr. Huxter naturally followed over in the course of a few minutes. The Anglo-Saxon genius for parliamentary government asserted itself. There was a great deal of talk and no There was a great deal of talk and no decisive action. Let's have the facts. No decisive action. Let's have the facts first. insisted Mr. Sandy Wadgers. Let's be sure we be acting perfect. Let's... First, insisted Mr. The facts first, insisted Mr. Sandy Wadgers. Let's be sure we be acting perfectly right in busting that there door open. A door open. A door unbust. Busting that there door open. A door unbust is always open to busting, but you can't unbust a door once you've busted in. And suddenly...
True enough. True enough.
You've busted in. Once you've busted in. And suddenly... You've busted in. And suddenly, and most wonderfully, the door of the room upstairs opened of its own accord. The door of the room upstairs opened of it. The door of the room up... And most wonderfully, the door of the room upstairs opened of its own accord. And as they looked up in amazement, they saw, descending the stairs, the muffled figure of the stranger, staring more blackly and blankly than ever with those unreasonably large blue glass eyes of his. He came down stiffly and slowly, staring all the time. He walked across the passage, staring all the time. He walked across the passage, staring, then stopped.
And then spoke with my incredibly high-tech solution to a muffled voice.
Look there!
I speak with my hand over my mouth.
Look there! Look there! Look there! Then stopped. Look there! He said.
Yep.
Then stopped. Look there! He said. Look there! He said, and their eyes followed the direction of his gloved finger and saw a bottle of sarsaparilla. Bottle of sarsaparilla. Gloved finger and saw a bottle of sarsaparilla hard by the cellar door. Then he entered the parlour and suddenly, swiftly, viciously slammed the door in their faces. Not a word was
I'm gonna have to get... I don't think I've got any good hard door slams. I'm going to have to record some around here somewhere.
Not a word was spoken until the last echoes of the slam had died away. They stared at one another.
We've got some good solid doors in this house, so that should be all right.
Died away. They stared at one another. Stared at one another. Stared at one another. Why, if that don't lick everything, said Mr. Wadgers, and left the alternative unsaid.
What's the alternative to if that don't lick everything? If it does lick everything?
The alternative unsaid. I'd go in and asking about it. The alternative unsaid. I'd go in and asking about it, said Wadgers. I'd go in and asking about it, said Wadgers to Mr. Hall. I demand an explanation. I demand an explanation. And an explanation. It took some time to bring the landlady's husband up to that pitch. At last, he rapped, opened the door, and got as far as, excuse me, excuse me. Go to the devil, said the... Excuse me. Go to the devil. Excuse me. Go to the devil, said the stranger. Said the to the devil, said the stranger in a tremendous voice. Shut that door after you. So that voice. Shut that door after you. So that after you. So that brief interview terminated.
Away. 2 chapters mastered. Excellent. Very good, very good, very good. And I only went on 2 small rants about AI. Hey! We're doing okay! That's alright. Okay, so that's it for the editing streams today. Tomorrow I'll do... oh, wait, no. Tomorrow is my day off! I get 1 day off a week! Yay! And then Sunday we'll be back streaming with the wife, doing something cool over on Steve Stuff Gaming. And then Monday... we'll come back and do the sound effects edits of these 2 chapters, 5 and 6, and we'll decide whether the clipping is fixable in Adobe or if I go and re-record a bunch of things. Fantastic. So I'll switch over here and hope that it works. Is it still working? Yes, it's good. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So, thanks for coming. Thanks, Judah, for joining in the edit and the chat and all that sort of stuff. And sparking off yet another AI rant from Steve. God, I hate that stuff. But yeah, we'll be back with more of this on Monday, which I believe is Sunday evening if you're in America. And yeah, okay. Catch you then. We'll be back in half an hour or so over on Steve Stuff Gaming with some more Valheim for those that are interested. Okay, thanks. Bye, 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 bye.